Hi, I'm Justin Crosby and welcome to another episode of TellyCast. My guest this week is Andrew Eastel, who's MD of Middlechild Productions. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great to see you. Thank you for making your way. I think you're on the way down the country at the moment. You've just been up in the northeast, haven't you? And you're on your way to the south coast.
We have an office, Northern Child in Newcastle, and we have Middlechild in Brighton. So I have quite a commute between the offices. So I've been there this week.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for dropping in on your journey. So we recently spoke at the How to Make Money in Digital event, and it was a really fascinating conversation, which we'll touch on and maybe go a little bit deeper in a couple of areas that we touch on there. But first of all, just for anybody that doesn't know Middlechild, just give us a bit of a background of Middlechild Productions and a bit of a history and what sort of business you are.
So we're essentially a traditional TV production company. That's our heritage. Set up by David Sumnall about 15 years ago, and I came on board not long after that. We make factual content for all of the major linear broadcasters in the country. We do a lot of returning series, observational documentaries for Channel 5, for UK TV. We do current affairs singles for the BBC. We do history stuff for Channel 4. So, as I say, very sort of traditional TV production. We were originally in London and then opened up in Brighton and a few years ago in Newcastle.
Right, okay. And first of all, how are you finding it at the moment? The market, I mean, things have changed, right, in the last 2 years for production businesses like yours. So give us your tales from the front line a little bit.
I think we're okay. So I think that sounds super positive.
Yeah.
No, we're busy, and that's a really good thing. And I know how difficult it is to be busy at the moment. It's definitely harder, and I think not just the obvious. Harder to get a commission because the linear broadcasters potentially don't have the sort of money that they once had and are commissioning less and so on. But I think harder as well because at least for the last maybe 2 years now, there's changes happening everywhere across the industry, very much at the broadcasters, our primary customers, and we don't have any control over how they are adjusting their businesses or what they might be doing. So I think for production companies, really predominantly still chasing the same model of commissioning that we've always have done, it sometimes feels like we're doing that slightly blindly. And it's always been to a degree like that. There's lots of variables behind the scenes that we aren't aware of when it comes to their commissioning decisions. But now it sometimes feels like an even bigger guessing game, and I feel for the broadcasters and the commissioning editors that we work with, and we know enough to know that that's just as hard for them on their side. And I'm sure many of them are sort of unsure about what the future holds entirely. And I think from a traditional linear television perspective, we just all hope that they can what the right word would be, reposition themselves maybe within the industry to be back to a consistent level of commissioning, even if it's not to the same sort of volume or price point that it once was.
Yeah, well, I think you've very clearly articulated the problem that pretty much every indie, and certainly factual indie, or a vast majority of factual indies in the UK are feeling right now. We're obviously seeing, huge drops in commissioning, and the commissioning that is happening is tighter on budgets as well, which is putting more and more strain on independent production companies. The reason for that, obviously, less viewers, and those eyeballs have shifted onto social, and attention onto traditional models, as everybody's attention is shifted into and fragmented and gone into different ways. We all know that. We've spoken about that a lot on TellyCast, obviously. But what I'm particularly interested in is your business and how you've adapted, and how are you were looking to adapt and planning to adapt to this new digital first production landscape, which I think you've done really successfully, and it's a really interesting case study. Your Gardening with Alan Titchmarsh channel, which is YouTube, basically a digital first channel.
Yeah.
Tell us about the channel first of all.
So I think in digital in general for us, we started doing some digital commissions from the broadcasters. So Channel 4, digital, 4 Digital, and for BBC, and we've always been doing quite low cost television, I think high volume amongst everything that we do. So it wasn't something, essentially a lower sort of price point that we were worried about doing. So we know how to make stuff as streamlined as we can make it from a sort of budgetary perspective. So with that in mind, I think we thankfully feel sort of a bit more primed for moving in the direction that some of the industry seems to be. We started working with a TV exec called Matt Young, who came to us, and he had lots of experience working on gardening shows, some of which were with Alan Titchmarsh. And at the time, we were discussing potentially doing some kind of digital play. We had done some research and looked at some data via a guy called Hawa, who had come to us and said that if we had unlicensed content from television, he could repackage that up and sort of pump it out through all the social media platforms, and there would be a sort of steady stream potentially of some revenue coming from that footage, which was otherwise just sitting around. We had spoken to him about doing some original content, and he was saying obviously that was almost certainly somewhere that would be a sort of higher earner, if you like, a chance of actually making some better revenue via those platforms rather than rehashed older content. So when Matt came in, we started talking to him about Alan and the potential of us putting together something with him. The other thing we had done in the background before that was look at genres within mainly the YouTube space, I think, that potentially would do well, not just with an audience, but with brands, because we recognised early on, still knowing very little, but knowing enough to know that the revenue that we would generate from a YouTube channel via the YouTube ads wasn't going to sustain something like Gardening with Alan Titchmarsh, for example, wasn't going to sustain something like we might make as a TV producer. Yeah. Gardening had come up as one of those areas that is not only a popular area of content, obviously. There isn't loads of really high-profile people doing that in the online space. It's not like gaming or beauty, for example. And also that there are clearly quite big gardening brands, and potentially they didn't have loads of other places to spend their money. So it ticked a lot of boxes.
It's a massive niche, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
The fact is, a lot of us have got gardens.
Yeah, and there are a few areas like that, right? I always, for some reason, go to fishing as one of those. Yeah. It's one of those sort of surprising areas that actually there's an awful lot of people involved in that and passionate about that. So there's a big market, there's a community that you could tap into. But there will also be brands commercially who don't have loads of places to spend their money at the moment. So they're almost not part of that thinner spread of advertising spend, which is part of the reason that the linear broadcasters are struggling a little bit more. So obviously we then had to, with Matt's help, who's been amazing, speak with Alan and Alan's agent and do the usual stuff with that. I say the usual stuff because actually that is still our bread and butter, speaking to talent and doing deals with those people and understanding the standards that they would expect and the quality of the output that they would expect is really key to sort of us being able to do anything for television in the linear sense or for the digital channel. And Alan and his agent were excited about the possibility of doing it. We treated it, and still do, very much like a traditional television broadcast arrangement, and we film it in much a similar way. And that's not necessarily because we have to, and in this world things are definitely more streamlined, but our experience knows that our talent, Alan, is used to those sorts of things. You're used to it being done properly, essentially, and that's a skill that we have that potentially not everyone would. So we are, in many ways, looking at the things that we can do and taking advantage of that, if that makes sense. 'Cause
absolutely. I mean, it's almost like I'd say a perfect recipe in terms of you have talent who's really, really well known with an agent who's with an outlook, and an agent who are really interested in experimenting with new opportunities. You have a really experienced production company making longer form content. You also have a huge growth in older viewers on YouTube who are used to watching longer form content, and naturally, and obviously that explosion of older viewers, not only older viewers, but more and more viewers watching on their connected TVs at home, wanting a traditional broadcast experience with a well-loved personality and trusted personality, and in an area that's not really being well served. So those are all the key ingredients for success, really.
Yeah. And I think it's not you then and us at the time make it sound really easy. You're absolutely right. They tick all the boxes, and we kind of assumed they would. But I think all of those variables.
But then it's how do you fund it?
Yeah,
right?
well, there's how do you fund it, but also I think if you think about other ideas like that, you do run aground at some point quite quickly. It's quite interesting that not quite all those variables aren't quite all there to make something work. And I'd add into that things like going to a really high-profile talent now, let's say, in any kind of subject area or a presenter, just a general presenter, and they quite possibly have a really strong presence online already. So they have all of their socials sort of tied up, and they do maybe do a bit of YouTube, and they certainly will be doing Instagram and TikTok. They may well have commercial deals with people already, with brands, that limit them from doing other things. So we have to play that in as a factor, because for us as a business, we don't want to be a gun for hire, just being, in this case, for example, the production company behind Alan's YouTube channel. We want to create a brand that has a community that comes around it, and as that grows, have revenue sources that change and expand all the time, that will pay back the money, obviously, we've invested into producing the channel, but also eventually create a profit for a business. And if you don't have that room to do that because other things are tied up, the talent already does a podcast, or the talent's already done 1 million books, or they've already got their own merchandise line, whatever it might be, then that becomes harder. So ticking all those boxes is definitely tricky. But I think we definitely bring to the table, when I say we, I don't mean just Middlechild, I mean experienced TV producers. I think we bring something to the table which allows us to carve out potentially our own space in this digital world that the creators that have been doing this for a long, long time aren't necessarily able to do quite as well. And that's really positive, because that's coming to something that feels like we've missed the boat on, but actually there's probably a whole load of things that if we think carefully about where our skill sets are, only we could do properly. Again, when I say we, the producers, the companies, the freelancers that are working in the television industry at the moment, there's an awful lot we can do that isn't being done yet, I think, in those spaces.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. I think it's about your strength and your superpowers, if you like, as a business. And it's easy, I think, to look at digital first and be a bit exasperated and feel a little bit, hopeless and helpless, thinking, oh, we've missed the boat, we don't understand all the, what all the creators are doing, we can't possibly compete, it's too late. But actually, that's why I think it's such a great case study, is the fact that you're playing to, you've identified a sort of almost like a Goldilocks project in terms of everything's right, and also your skill sets are perfect in order for you to deliver on that. Well, let's have a look at a clip from Gardening with Alan Titchmarsh.
Now, you may end up looking like a stormtrooper from Star Wars, but it's all in a good cause. Check when you're buying one of these hedge trimmers that you can cope with the weight. The lighter it is, the longer you will be able to use it. You may think, oh, that's okay. Believe me, after 15-20 minutes of using this, your arms will ache. This is Choisya ternata, the Mexican orange blossom, not a shrub to prune in winter, because it's borderline tender, but I want to show you the technique I use. I've got it either side of the drive here, and I've clipped it into this rolling C. So the important thing to do is to watch the technique and to be smooth and sweeping in your movements, but to do it in summer. Visor down, machine on, here we go.
So, so what was the general thinking about moving into this space as well as a business? I mean, you talked about earlier, we talked about it's difficult times. Is it really just looking forward as a future-proofing exercise and a key strategic move for you as a business?
I think I don't even 100% know if we still know. Would be the not the best answer to that, but an answer. We love making television, and we have like all production companies our size, have a structure and a setup and overheads essentially that are built to be fueled by the revenue that we might generate each year from traditional linear television commissions. And it's very hard to then go, well, actually, let's just move everything over to this digital scenario, a completely different model, because that model is completely different. So the revenue stream is not the same. It doesn't come at the same time. The money doesn't come in at the same time. There's longer strategic plays in digital, which may well pay off better than potentially a television commission at some point. But our companies are set up to pay people's wages and premises and everything based on the revenue that we'd get from television. So I think we still see linear television as our sort of main source of income. But I think especially when things seem like they're getting harder or we're not busy, we're entrepreneurs and we're creative people and much like the rest of the production community. And so you are always looking for where you can essentially make some more money to cover your costs and to make sure everyone's getting paid properly. So it's natural to go, there could be an opportunity here that our skills could be applied to that actually could help us generate some of that revenue. At the same time, it's at least positioning us on that path, because if none of us know yet quite how things are going to readjust at the broadcasters, within the community in general. But if it does go down that road in some form, like almost completely, then at least we're doing that. And I think that, to be honest, is probably that bit more than anything else. There was the creativity in just finding an opportunity, but also just positioning ourselves to at least be trying that and seeing how that worked out for us, but also more broadly, if that is the direction that things go in. And I think at the moment it does seem to be that is the way, even though we're still set up to operate like a TV production company, and that's what we do. And just on that front, I think there are some TV production companies who will really be suffering at the moment because they may be most directly affected by the things that aren't really being commissioned. But then there is still premium television being commissioned. There seems to still be money for that. granted largely in sort of entertainment at the moment, but I think at some point, you know, this is the nature of the industry. It might be that they go, actually, we're spending a lot of money on entertainment and it's a punt and they don't all work. What has always worked is documentary and observational documentary and real people doing real stuff. And, you know, maybe that swings back and some of that premium money is spent on the things that we do already. We also have done a lot of low-cost, high-volume. As I imagine, to be honest, the majority of the production community out there in terms of companies is not making the premium stuff. They're making the lower-cost stuff. And I do think that certainly for the time being, linear broadcasters still need that to fill their schedules. So it could be a time for all of us at this sort of level to capitalise on that. So I think there's some positivity in it. But at the same time, we don't know where that's going to end up. So we should have an eye on where else this could move towards. And that's what we're doing. And I think we've had a really good experience with the Alan channel. And it's definitely we're going to do more because we can see the potential in it. It's just getting that balance. And I think I speak for, you know, all the production companies. It's like, oh my God, well, how much time do we spend trying to chase that? And do we have enough time to survive whilst we wait for that to pay off? And how much time do we spend on developing TV ideas? It's a real, you know, it's a balance.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many points there that you make that, you know, that are really interesting, fascinating, prescient. And I mean, one point is obviously you've seen how The Neighbourhood has performed, and so that's, you know, perhaps a pointer in terms of like you say, some of those higher budget decisions that have been made by broadcasters and how they're developing.
It's hard to know, isn't it? Because what we do get told a lot, and understandably, is that things aren't really commissioned for the overnights anymore. For the overnight numbers just don't seem to matter as much anymore. And that makes sense, and we don't know how well that might do on ITVX, for example. And they're smart people behind them. They may see the overnights as disappointing, but they may have quite a good business strategy for how ultimately that content pays off in the long run digitally. It's hard to know. Yeah. But I also think that if you're getting good overnights, then you are attracting more expensive advertising on your channel at that point. So if you're doing over $1 million somehow on Channel 4 or Channel 5, for example, that's a valuable piece of factual content. And if that factual content is obstock, and it does seem from our perspective, you know, we are still thankfully getting commissioned for the series that we make in that space, they do a really solid job. And if they take lots of punts and they don't pay off with the bigger price stuff, you'd hope that there's also some more cautionary but safer bets on that sort of factual obstock type content that will also help fuel a lot of the smaller production companies out there. And maybe it settles a bit more into that. It's just hard to know.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I mean, I don't watch linear TV anymore, but I happened to go to a football game away the other week, and I sort of sat down, laid on the hotel bed, turned on the hotel TV, and I thought, oh, you know, it almost felt a bit of a novelty turning on a telly and leaning down rather than going straight to your phone. And I just looked at the EPG, and it was really interesting to see on Channel 4 and Channel 5, there were two digital first shows playing out at the same time. There was Piers Morgan Uncensored and TFI Friday, both of which are YouTube first shows. Yeah. And that certainly, to me, feels like, you know, the model of the future in terms of TV just being one part of the production, the universe, the IP universe that a producer needs to consider.
It's part of the ecology, I think, and it already is, as you just said. And I think you're right. I think there'll be more of that. And hopefully it's just a mix of all of it. You know, will linear broadcasters end up just acquiring content from digital spaces or archive? Maybe, but will there actually just be a really long period where they are commissioning original content, but they also do require more content to come from those sources, in which case, as producers, kind of where we're positioning ourselves at the moment, you should be doing both, right? Because you can be the seller, and you can be the company pitching an idea for the broadcaster to be commissioning from you in the traditional way. And if we're able to generate our own content, and we have a brand that has various sources of revenue and a really long shelf life potentially, that's a nice position to be in if you're selling some of that content back to a broadcaster. And not just in the UK, you know, there's plenty of other territories it can be repackaged for, and it's something that we're now in a conversation that's really far down the line with selling a series using essentially the content we filmed on the Alan Titchmarsh channel back to a broadcaster with a bit of new filming and obviously some nice voiceover, and we'll re-edit those shows down to suit the channel and the idea for the series. But you know, we are. That's another revenue source for us, not one that we're reliant upon, and we're providing a channel with content that's much more affordable for them. It makes an awful lot of sense.
It makes an awful lot of sense because you're then controlling your own IP and your own distribution, which I think is really exciting.
It is liberating, to be honest, because it. And I didn't realise quite how much until you start thinking about it properly and all the things you could do, many of which are probably crazy ideas and when we probably won't do, or they'll fail. But even with just one set of content or one brand, in my mind, we could be repackaging something for one of the British broadcasters and calling it whatever we're calling it, and repackaging almost the same content with slightly different edits and everything as a different series for a broadcaster abroad who want slightly different things. There's not one show we've already made and then we're just trying to trying to sell it. There's all sorts of things you could do. As simple as, well, we could sell hours of the show to this place, and this place want half an hour, and this place want the title to be more this, and they want the footage to be more based in that part of where you are rather than the other part. But why not? And I think there will become, hopefully, there'll become a point where that kind of content being acquired by the broadcasters will mean that the broadcasters are less concerned about whether some of it in another form has already appeared somewhere else, or whether they can't have the digital rights, or whatever it might be. I just think we're in a world where there's a necessity for content on well-established broadcast platforms, but there isn't necessarily the means to acquire that content in the same traditional way they always have done. So you have to find it somewhere else. And again, to go back to our, as in traditional linear TV producers' position in that, well, that's something that a broadcast platform is only likely to buy from those people. So if we're producing that online, let's say we're making it digital first, we know how to also film that and prepare that ready for a potential broadcast sale. So
when you're producing it with TV in mind, but it's actually YouTube first, but you're capturing everything you need for TV
and
as well.
You could be a YouTube creator with a fantastic channel that's massive and great content that a broadcaster wanted, but the reality is the things probably weren't in place to enable the broadcaster to take it, which could be everything from down to what was filmed at the time, or what could be filmed to add to it by that creator, but also the legal compliance around it, the duty of care, things around it. All of that stuff is what we do every day, and that doesn't mean we can go online and create the same really popular channel that someone's making from their bedroom, but it does mean we can go into the digital space and make content that maybe hasn't really been able to have been made before now, because that professional approach to it behind the scenes, it just hasn't really been available.
Yeah. And what's really interesting, you're talking about international as well. I mean, obviously, the YouTube shows up there. Does Alan Titchmarsh have much of a following internationally in particular territories?
I mean, so we're again, if you think about the subject as well. So if you're looking at what subject we should work within, if we're for a digital brand, it's a good idea for it to travel, because we as a company have always made quite British-centric documentary, and actually some of that does sell really well around the world, but other times it just feels a bit too much of a British subject matter. So gardening is obviously really good to give you that sort of scope. And yeah, Alan has a name around the world, so we're talking to distributors now about distributing the program that we're making for the broadcaster, who will then sell that onto all of these sort of things. They start to build up, and I don't want to sit here and sort of mislead the production community and be like, you know, we're going to be rolling in money because of this, because it isn't. It's not the same numbers. I mean, everyone will know that anything that's being acquired, for example, is not paid for anywhere near the number that you might get for a commission. But if you are covering your costs with
by having a brand up front, then that is all pure profit, essentially.
Essentially, yeah. And you've got to look at how you then, the plans to grow that channel and to attract more revenue streams costs more money. But if there is a rolling system where you can end up generating enough money to do the next thing you want to do, and so on and so on and so on, and eventually in the background almost the brand has grown to a point where it's more valuable in terms of how much a brand might pay to be on it. It's more valuable in terms of the size of the community that are now aware of the brand and buying into the brand. And then, much as yourself has done, you're then into sort of live events, and you're into all sorts of other things. And there's no one way of doing it.
It's absolutely, it's again, I've mentioned this a few times on recent shows, but the content octopus, the IP in the middle, and the 8 legs of different ways of monetization, which is really, really key component. Really, that's why I thought it'd be really interesting to chat to you about this, because I think it's such a great case study and so relevant to, I think, a lot of producers out there who have got those talent relationships, who've got great ideas. What I think that stands out about Gardening with Alan Titchmarsh, though, and the YouTube play, is you've really leveraged the way that YouTube is used as a search engine, rather than it purely being internet TV, if you like.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to work out, how to fill the patches on my lawn, I think many people who are in DIY or gardening or anything to do with home improvement, you're straight onto YouTube.
Yeah.
And there you are. So that is a really, really great solution to people's problems.
And it was one of the things that we looked at when we first looked into whether this was the right subject matter. It comes into the educational category on YouTube, which is a good place to be, because essentially you're in a sort of slightly higher tier of advertising, but it's also a very popular place to be. And as you rightly say, I think for a long time, all generations have been typing into YouTube, how do I do this, or what should I do with this? Yeah. Myself included. If I'm being honest, I'm pushing 50, so I don't want to sort of try to pretend I'm a young person. But I would say that my heavier usage of YouTube did used to be that. It did used to be, it's an encyclopedia for things I just don't know how to do.
Well, it's the world's second biggest search engine.
Yeah, and this is something I'm definitely not an expert in, but I was thinking about this the other day, and AI coming in, I don't think, although lots of people are now asking ChatGPT how to do blah, 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 like video, which at the moment, ChatGPT isn't sort of pumping out, as far as I know. I think it would be more looking at YouTube to find the answers itself. It feels like there's a sustainability of video content for that world, and that is definitely, I think, what's a driver for the older generation onto things like YouTube. And we I'd need to look at the data in detail to sort of understand the age demographic of who's looking at the Alan Titchmarsh gardening channel. But it's definitely the older generation.
Yeah.
And I think that that also dictates a little bit with what you do content-wise. One thing we're saying to our guys internally in development, and again, I say all this thing like it's some new thing that we've worked out, and it's not lost on me that there's been people doing this for a long time and worked this out a long time ago. But we're talking to them when it comes to digital conversations that they need to come up with a business model first and the content later, because we can all have amazing ideas for something we'd like to make as a show or a film, but it's no point just us making a fantastic documentary and just chucking it on YouTube and hoping for the best. The Alan Titchmarsh gardening, the older demographic using YouTube, all of these things are things that we considered first, and then the content kind of comes afterwards. But when you're thinking about content, our ethos has been similar to what we were just discussing. What's the things that the audience needs to know? That the essential tips and tricks that this is the one-stop shop to go and get them from. We could have added in, Alan talking about his career, which would be fascinating, but I don't think on that medium that's necessarily the right place to do it, because you don't just want Alan's fans watching, you want anyone that's got a question about gardening to end up there, anywhere in the world, obviously. And I think videos like 4 essential things you need to do in April in your garden is a fantastic kind of title for a video, because it gives that sense to the person scrolling through YouTube that they have to watch it, even if they didn't want to. If I don't watch it, what have I not done in my garden in April, and the whole thing's going to die, So those sort of a sense of, in that space, those kind of, I think it is common sense, is my point. I think, and again, there is an art to it all, and there's some people that are brilliant at doing the thumbnails and the titles and so on, and it makes a lot of sense, and it's trying to work out the algorithm, obviously. But I do think, again, as TV producers, we're selling stuff a lot. We're selling our shows. We're trying to get people to watch them. We're trying to tell really gripping stories, and it's just there's a continuation of that. It's common sense for those that work in that world, I think.
Yeah. Well, but what I really like about it is the way that you've talked about approaching this as it's almost as a new business, as being an entrepreneur, approaching launching a channel as its own business, as opposed to just making a great show because you think people are going to want to watch it, which is definitely the smart way to approach it. So let's just talk about the success of the channel then. It's about 500,000 views a month or something like that at the moment, I think.
Yeah, although when I checked this morning, I think it'd gone up from that as well. And it's got over 150,000 subscribers now. And in a relatively quick time, I think.
Yeah.
So we've been told, again, sort of news, all of this stuff you're learning as you go. And it's kind of great because, again, at 50 years old and been in the industry now for what seems like quite a long time, it's quite nice to suddenly have a new sort of area to start learning about. So yeah, it's interesting when you sort of monitor like video views, and it's easy to get despondent. And we do something. Why is that one not done really well? And well, it's it's all going backwards. It's never going backwards. But it's really hard to predict or even understand afterwards, to be honest, why one video would do well and the other wouldn't. The data is amazing to have it, and it's something that is another fantastic advantage of that space. We don't have anywhere near that level of data for traditional television programs. So to have that data is really important to lead you on to slightly twist your titles or what kind of content you're going to have next or what the thumbnail's going to be. But it's also madly infuriating because...
Well, your content, what I think I've mentioned this before to you, but your content is really interesting because as it's that helpful content and it's seasonal, gardening is seasonal, obviously. So you're like, everybody comes out of winter in the UK and goes, oh, right, I'm going to do my first trip to the garden centre. I've got to do something about this lawn. This looks really, really, really bad. And obviously, and that's when you're in the process of sort of searching and thinking about it. So therefore, spring is a really good, time for people searching and viewing. But obviously, spring happens at a different time around the year. So you've got Australia having spring at a different, so it's a really clever sort of rolling, searching for content or library that you're creating for people, which is really smart.
Lucky for us, spring happens every year, so it's got an eternity to it in that respect. So again, I think it was strategic. And we managed to tick all the boxes somehow, and it's doing well, and it's all kind of seems to have come together as we thought it might.
Yeah.
But part of me sort of thinks, I'm not sure it's that easy to repeat that.
No.
Alan, is an amazing talent to have in that space. So if we think about other subject matters that aren't gardening, and then you think about who's the top person in that, they're probably not gettable. It's quite unique for us to have a subject area with probably the leading sort of high-profile person in the country in that space on our channel. I think that makes a massive difference, obviously.
Yeah.
But then I think the other, you can look at the way we've been looking at it is that all of these channels, all the different variables are at sort of different levels of positive and negative, and you kind of, where one thing feels weaker, something else gets stronger. And it seems to happen all the time. So as an example, if we found a subject area that we knew was undercatered for, but we also knew there's big brands available to it that potentially would come in and support the funding of it. But the person that was the leading person in that field didn't have a high profile, what we would find is that some of the other aspects of that are then made easier. So if that person didn't have such a high profile, they're probably not as busy as, say, Alan would be. And therefore, you can actually film more content quicker, potentially.
Yep.
And when you start when one of those things goes down, another one often goes up. It also depends which way round you're doing it, which can get confusing now. But with brands, what we've been doing is approaching them and saying, we have this channel, this person is fronting it, this is the content, and they've been really keen to get involved really quickly. If they're not keen to get involved very quickly and we need to see some growth in the channel first, then we need to look at other revenue sources. But often where brands aren't available and you've not therefore got sort of product placement or a sponsorship, what we're starting to see just through conversations is it makes some of the other revenue sources more interested. So whereas we can often look at models where we're selling content, repackaging it back to television, conversations we're having now about other ideas are, well, the first thing we do is get a pre-sale for this content from television. And we then know that we're saying we can make a 12-part series for you with our footage. It's not talent-led. It's just good quality, factual television. We can deliver it to you in 6 months. They say, yeah, okay, we'll pay X for that. We then start making the content and creating a brand online that will still be there. And we know that money is either partly paid or coming to us. And let's say we do that for a year, our channel has grown thanks to the pre-sales that we had for the broadcaster who was willing to take the show. And then there's enough of a community to bring brands in. And so brands come in later then, and then they become maybe the primary source, but we were able to get the channel off the ground because the revenue was coming from the TV angle. Yeah. So it all sort of flips around and you can kind of move it around and it gets complicated. And I'm saying this slightly speculatively because these are definitely conversations that we're having and it seems absolutely like things will pan out like that. But I don't think you also ever really fully know.
Well, it's so new. It's so it's these opportunities are new, and everyone's sort of building the plane whilst they're flying it,
Yeah,
aren't they?
I would say, though, that it feels like at the moment, as you start to think that way, or you start to have conversations, or even start to make content, so far, more opportunities are opening up than closing off. There's definitely things that we've not thought was even an option until we started discussing it with various entities. And now, I'm having meetings with people representing brands who are interested in what we're doing and how they could get involved. And whether that means we end up doing some branded content, again, been around for a long time, the sort of thing that Spirit will do a lot of good stuff on. Or it means that we know that there are brands around that would support very much our own channel, and then we have that longevity because it's our brand. We're not just kind of being commissioned to make 6 months worth of videos for a brand, but we still retain, so we have something that we can retain that kind of IP over for a lifetime and go off in whichever direction we want.
So final question, Andrew, is looking ahead to the future. Now you've launched your digital division at Middlechild, which is Wildchild, right?
Wildchild, yeah, which really is because it needs to be treated like a separate business, because it can't just plug into the same sort of structure and rates and roles that we have at the moment.
So let's say 3 years in the future, Middlechild is hopefully still working with linear production as well. Would you estimate that Wildchild will be a bigger part of your overall business? And if so, how are you going to get it there? What are the what are your plans to build Wildchild within the group?
I couldn't tell you whether it would be bigger, the same, or smaller in terms of, I guess, financial size as the as Middlechild or Northern Child, because one, we don't know where traditional television is going, and being optimistic, there's every chance we absolutely do fill a void, and we are making low cost, high volume stuff, and we're making premium factual because they want factual instead of entertainment. So that we don't know with that. I think with Wildchild, I think in 10 years' time, rather than 3, you can see that doing great guns. You really can. I think at the moment, because we're having to sort of juggle and get this balance right, and our focus is still primarily on what we're structured to do and traditional linear television, that's kind of the Wildchild stuff is happening organically, and it's really nice because I think the opportunities that kind of come up and make a lot of sense really quickly, we can move on really quickly, and then they happen. So we've already got 2 new, very similar to the Alan model channels happening. So one with pets and one with survival, which is an area we've sort of identified as having a decent amount of brands in, and we're working with someone who's sort of high profile in that world. So they're definitely happening. But we're also discussing doing an Access observational documentary type show more along the lines of the television pre-sales route as well. So those things we haven't spent loads and loads of time sort of developing that and coming up with a new idea necessarily. They've kind of happened organically, which is amazing, because if we can run it like that, that's great, because we're not investing loads of time and energy into just trying to find the next big thing. The opportunity is presenting itself to us, which is a really nice space to be in, because that's rare in this day and age, but it does show how much of an open door we're pushing at with that world. So I think the thing, as I'm sure other people have already, they had, Little Dot Studios, for example, and again Spirit have done. I think some of the money from the big money, I guess, from the digital area is volume in terms of brands and channels. So what that would allow us to do is to have 10 different things going on under Wildchild, and a structure of permanent employees who are able to oversee all 10, and then people working on those channels that have long-term contracts with us to run those channels, because that's the brilliant thing about it. And one thing I've been saying to freelancers when I've been speaking to them is it is different, and if there's an expectation that it's just like, well, we're going to just do everything the same as we normally do, it's just for digital now, I think that's going to be pretty rare.
Yeah.
There will be an element of that for the digital channels that the broadcasters are running, because their expectation will still match a lot of the linear television, and so the structures and the roles within there will be similar. But when we're talking about this world where the production companies are essentially running the brand, that business model is so different that the roles and the rates can't be the same. I mean, maybe they could be similar on certain projects, but generally speaking, it has to change because what's happening behind the scenes and when and where that money's coming from just isn't the same. But I think the positive side of that is the freelance community has had years of struggling, trying to find work and then and finding something and being out of work again, and it's awful. I think this feels really positive in that, yes, okay, the role might be, you might have more responsibility in the role. You might not have all the people on a crew that you might normally have, for example. You might have less time in an edit or whatever it might be to make the money work. And the rate might not be the same as it will be in television on a premium commission. But what we can offer, I think, or we will be able to offer, again, we as in the production community doing this, is sort of long-term security.
Yeah.
Because the point is, we're not making a 4-part series for telly, which everybody kills themselves on, and then it goes out and then it doesn't come back because it didn't rate or because they can't afford for it to come back.
You become a studio with forecasting and content that is consistent and solid and forecastable, right?
Runs for as long as it's growing, or doing anything, or even if it's not growing anymore because it's got to the top, but it's still fantastically successful. If we create a brand and it's doing really well in its own right via the online platforms and the socials that it's on, then that can run forever and ever and ever. And we can be making telly from it, and we can be doing podcasts from it, and we can be doing everything else, and probably even newer, more wonderful ways of exploiting that content. People working on that, if they want to, could be working on that for the life of it, or years. So it changes the model of work within it. In some ways, it may be deemed as being slightly negative, as I said, but I think in many ways, if it all goes the way that it seems to be going, and there's many more production companies like us trying to do that, then there will be more secure long-term work for people. And that, to me, feels like that's definitely one of the positive sides of it rather than the negative.
Really interesting way of looking at it. Andrew, it's time for Story of the Week in our show. So what is the TV or content industry story that you've noticed and opened your eyes in the last 7 days or so?
Having obviously spent, days and days thinking about this, and then reading just before I came in here on broadcast that Janine Thomas has got a job at Storyville. So moving from Channel 4, where she's run the Untold strand for the last few years, and now is a commissioner for Storyville on the BBC. And we've worked for Janine before, and she's great, and so it's just lovely news to read anyway. But I just thought, that's really interesting. She's been sort of in charge of a digital-first docs brand at Channel 4 now for a few years, and I guess one of the sort of highest profile documentary brands that we have in the country at Storyville have deemed someone like that to be the perfect person to come and help them generate their content. And I just think it's a good news story for digital in some way. It's the Untold strand, I think, is a really good example of how you can do sort of really good docs digital first. And I just thought that's quite a positive digital to linear story.
Yeah, fantastic. Well done to Janine. Congratulations to her. How about your hero of the week? Do you have a hero of the week?
It has to be David Attenborough at 100.
Yeah.
Hard pressed to find a better hero, especially for sort of linear television.
Yeah.
You know, like an absolute household name who's done that through linear television. So it talks a lot, I think, to the heritage of that medium as much as anything else. And I think, and how people from that world absolutely can cross over into all the others. I think linear television it should be lauded a little bit more for everything it has done, rather than sort of the situation it finds itself in now. And I think he's just a prime example of an amazing person that's done some amazing things, but a really good, positive linear TV story as well.
Rarely can you say national treasure about somebody and really, really mean it.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. I would quite like to, if he's listening, do a YouTube channel with him if he's up for that.
I think that'd be a brilliant idea. And finally, who or what are you telling to get in the bin?
This is more of a group of people rather than one, but I have an 8-year-old daughter, and she's obviously not on social media yet, but I'm really attuned now to things that she might see and hear and do on that when eventually, unfortunately, she has to experience it. I think the influencers and the sort of slop that's on those platforms now seems to be, much as all the positivity in the digital world, I think there's a lot of rubbish on there now, and there's a lot of, I know that's always been an issue, and maybe I'm just a bit more in tune to it, as I said, but there's more fakery from individuals on there, and there's a lot of, and for all of the AI's positivity and potentially helpful things in our world, the kind of slop that's now appearing everywhere, just starting to kind of make it harder to find the authentic content on there, and that's definitely not a good thing.
And as a parent, would you support the under 16 ban for social media that's been sort of in discussion at the moment, do you think?
Yeah. But because of that, it's a shame, isn't it, in a way, because you wouldn't say we should do an under 16 ban on people from terrestrial television, because there's guardrails and the content is authentic. But until that's possible, it seems to only be getting worse to me, and I wouldn't want her exposed to that, or exposed to the tricks that they use to keep us all hooked on it. It's not, as the without getting too political, as the Facebook court case proved the other week, they absolutely are trying to addict people to the platform, and that's not safe when they also have some of the stuff I just mentioned on their platform either. So it would be good to get that sorted.
Yes.
Mean feat.
Well, we could talk a lot about that. I think that's another rabbit hole we could go down. But for now, Andrew, thank you for joining me. It's been a great conversation. I wish you all the best with Middlechild and Wildchild. It's really exciting what you're doing, and as I say, it's a really great case study for a previously linear-focused business adapting to the digital-first world. So congratulations for that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on the show. Well, that's about it for this week's TellyCast. Thank you for Andrew for joining us. TellyCast was produced by Spirit Studios and recorded in London. We'll be back next week with another show.